to Simpler. We are three pastors, husbands, and fathers on a journey to make life simpler by holding Jesus as the core for every belief and practice. This journey has shaped us to be more like Christ, freed us from the shame of failure, and encouraged us to a deeper love of our Lord and God. We invite you to join us in the discussions that have shaped and continue to shape our lives.
Let's hire a couple of people just to hold boom mics.
You just pass one individual mic. Yeah. Have y'all seen that video or that picture from the first Star Wars movie? There's the guy in pink shorts. That's what he's known as.
Yeah.
He's wearing these like crazy short pink shorts.
Yeah.
And they're in the desert. So it's all he's wearing. It's those pink shorts and his headphones and the boom mic.
Yep.
So he
not in the movie, but
he's on the set. And so there's a behind the scenes picture of that. And he's so popular. There's at least one person at every Comic-Con who comes dressed up as the guy in pink shorts.
That's so funny.
It's a good time. I want to say that some group also made a little action figure of him. And I was like, that's good. That makes me happy.
I want to know how you know that there's one in every Comic-Con.
Well, I feel like it's posted every year. Like, I saw the guy in pink shorts this year. Maybe it's one guy that just goes back every year. He's like, people love my costume.
Is it the same guy?
That'd be so funny if it was actually the boom guy. Yeah. He's like 50 years old, just walking around in short pink shorts. These are the ones, guys.
Like 65.
That's true, yeah. Because that was 77.
He's almost 50.
Yeah, golly. So yeah, that came out in 77.
He would have been really young doing the boom stand in pink shorts.
Yes.
Star Wars boom guy.
I like that Google search.
Could get you some awkward stuff.
Yeah.
Good.
No, it's not awkward.
I think it'd be really funny if you were trying to find like the guy who threw a grenade, like the Star Wars boom guy. He made go boom, yeah.
So like immediately what popped up was the picture on the set, but also Comic-Con people dressed up.
Yeah, see? It's popular,
It's funny.
man. It's a good time.
It's not going to load now.
No,
see.
As soon as we want to see
Pink
the
shorts boom guy finally speaks out over 40 years later. Well, I'll have to read that.
50-year-old who was 10.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll have to read this article later. It's funny.
It's a good time, man.
So it won't let me zoom in on it right now.
The shorts.
It's so funny, man. I love the.
He must work out.
I want to look up what I saw.
Dumb and Dumber.
Dumb and Dumber.
Yes. I want to look up what group, if this action figure was actually a thing, because it's gotten to the point now where there will be different San Diego Comic-Con like special releases of action figures and stuff. So last year they had I'm blanking on his name now. It's Dave Filoni and the other guy who's
pronounced felony.
And the other guy who, oh my gosh, I'm going to get roasted, but the other guy who did the Mandalorian, and they made them as action figures with Mandalorian armor and their heads exposed with whatever their favorite weapon was from the series. And that's so cool. This year, the special edition Jurassic Park toy that's being released is the lawyer getting eaten by the T-Rex. And so it comes with like the toilet and everything.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. So yeah, that T-Rex and lawyer toy comes with a toilet where he can like sit on the toilet and everything. And I was like, well, I want that on my desk. I want the lawyer to sit on the toilet right there
in the bathroom.
Hey,
right, that's right.
I want to give a shout out to Ken Nightingale.
Ken Nightingale.
That's the pink shorts boom guy.
That's his name. Nightingale?
Nightingale?
Yeah, that's how I pronounce it. Yeah, that's literally what I thought of when you said it.
Yeah.
Nightingale.
It's probably like Smith.
That's right. Yeah.
The Nightingale is silent.
Yeah. I wonder what desert they were in when they recorded. Because they recorded a lot of that in
New Mexico.
Europe. Yeah, they just came to New Mexico. I think they went down to Africa for the desert ones, and then went back. Or no, was it the Middle East? I want to look it up to see, because I think they recorded in the same place for The Force Awakens, and for some of the places where they returned to some desert planets. They went to similar
from the
area.
original movie. Some of the stuff's still there.
That's wild.
In Africa?
Wherever they
Or
built
Middle
it.
East?
Wherever they built, yeah.
That's wild.
New Mexico?
Yeah, it's in New Mexico. That's right.
I mean, it's just like the same thing.
It's exactly the same thing. Yeah, that makes me really want to go see that. Well, that was the same thing with Lord of the Rings. originally they tried to tear down everything that they built in New Zealand. But then whenever they rebuilt Hobbiton for The Hobbit, they were like, let's just leave it up and make it a tourist attraction. So they built it more out of permanent materials. We can go visit Hobbiton. There was a clip of, it was an interview, or it was like
Tanzania.
In Tanzania? Or is it Tanzania?
Tunisia. Sorry.
Tarzan.
I don't know. How do you say this?
Some people say Tanzania.
I've heard.
No, not Tanzania.
Oh.
Tunisia.
Tunisia.
Yeah, sorry. Tunisia.
Is that in the Middle East or is that in Africa?
I don't know. Pierce, I'm just now pulling this up, brother.
It's so solemn. I don't know. Oh, man.
It's a real place.
I forget what I was saying. You mean they didn't build the set in a fictional world?
Let's see.
But that was the joke on the Graham Norton show. It's a British talk show.
Yep. They're the most popular tourist attractions in the country.
That's dope.
Because they still exist.
That's so cool. Robin Williams and Elijah Wood
Sahara
were on
Desert.
It is in Sarah. Okay.
Yeah.
Elijah Woods and Robin Williams were on the Graham Norton show, and he was telling the story about how when he went back to film his scenes for The Hobbit, how it was really cool that they were building things into more permanent materials, and that it's a real place now. And I think he just started with, it's a real place now, and both the host and Robin Williams were like, it's a real place. And Robin Williams turns to the host. He goes, "Don't crush his dreams. He's just a young boy." Sure, the hobbits are real.
That's fantastic.
Then Robin Williams made a big joke about how they should turn into like an actual resort where you walk in and you have to like crouch down and walk around. Like, here's the jacuzzi. It's just a little bowl.
That would be awesome to like
put your hand in it.
Have to stay in a hobbit house.
It'd be the first 30 minutes would be cool, and then you're like, my back hurts.
Let's just do it where it's like you got a big house and a little house. The kids stay in the hobbit house.
That'd be cool. Yeah, that'd be really fun.
That's like every kid's dream to have a house your size like that.
Yeah. I've often wondered too, like for kids, for children, it's so mind blowing to me that like they're just okay with people walking around that are 3 times their height. Like just thinking about that perspective that I'm enormous compared to my daughter. I'm so big, but that's just her world. It's just normal to her. That like, but imagine if we walked out that door and there was a man 27 feet tall. Like,
yeah, I'd be scared.
Be scared.
First of all, because if you're saying they're 3 times your height, that means you're 9 feet. So.
Yeah, people only see me sitting down, so they don't know how long my legs go.
Your torso's very short, and your legs kicking me.
I've got this 3 foot long torso and
24.
I know, right? Just legs, just walking around. It'd be scary, man. You just see a pair of legs walk by the window. It's a good time. So I'm not really 9 feet tall, so that would be what, 18 feet. Yeah. How tall? You're 6'3".
Almost.
Yeah. 6'2.5".
Yeah.
I told you that story. Anyway, let's go to the PCC. There was one time I told my wife, she was like, I'm 5'8.5" or whatever she is. I can't remember. And I was like, it's crazy how short people say the halves afterward. And she was like, I'm not short. And I was like, that's so crazy how short people get mad about it.
Gotta have that half.
Exactly. You gotta have it, man. It works. Here in the Culture Corner, what's up, everybody? It's good to see you. It's a good chime. I like that. Good to see you. Sit down, have a good time. I'm gonna play.
You know we add that in, right?
Oh, I know it's added in later.
You mean that's not just clips of Ryan's voice?
I'm off my game today.
That's right. Usually we have a chime player live.
I'm doing that next time. I'm bringing
some chimes. Yeah. This is the first time I've ever done this on an episode, but I didn't want to type out everything this person says. I'm going to play like a 50-second clip real fast.
It's not going to play.
It'll probably take about 50 seconds.
Yeah. Let's see.
I'm going to play this clip really fast.
There have been studies that came out recently where it's showing acceptance of the community, gay people included, is declining rapidly. And it's hard to even blame people for becoming less tolerant because all you see, like I said, is just these horrible videos and images and just events that are taking place with children involved. So I totally understand it. I mean, there are millions of us that long ago separated ourselves from the whole Pride movement, even before they started going after kids, just because it became so highly sexualized. It was no longer really fighting for equality because we achieved equality. It was more so fighting for supremacy. And now it's bending society to accommodate this fringe minority.
So So in case you didn't reference this, or in case you don't know the reference that this person's talking about, this person is discussing how within the LGBTQ community, there have been drag shows, there have been even things within children's TV show where there is a lot of over sexualization. It also goes back to the bill in Florida where there's this push to teach about sexuality and gender identity.
Whoa.
Oh, sorry. Let me rephrase that. There's the law.
That's not what the bill did.
No.
Well, I'm sorry. Help me there.
The bill is
Yeah.
giving parents the right to say no to that stuff in
exactly.
the schools. Is that what you mean?
No, that's what I meant. I'm sorry. There is, because of the bill, there are people saying like,
No.
Oh, okay.
No, they'll say that. They were doing it before.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you talked about last time where people just want to justify their actions
Yeah.
based on somebody else. So they would say like, you're stripping our rights away.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what the hell are you talking about? You're stripping your rights away from telling my kids that they should be over sexualized with that stuff? Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you're going to use that as justification to do all the craziness you were doing before, say what you will, but it's not because of the bill.
I gotcha.
They say that because they're looking for a scapegoat to do all the BS that they're doing with the kids. That's what I'm. So there's no correlation with the bill technically.
Yeah, gotcha.
They say that, but it doesn't have anything to do with the bill.
So that was already going on.
Yeah.
And then the bill took place, and they're like, wait a minute, you're trying to strip us away.
That's what people forget.
doing.
Like, they did the bill because
it was already going on.
They were doing it.
I got you.
And then they say it's because of the bill that they're doing it. And you're like, you guys are like maybe the biggest idiots I've ever met in my entire life. I've never met him. I hope I meet him.
Yeah, so you can have the conversation. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So I
swear,
misspoke.
someday I'm going to be on the national news for this kind of stuff. Because I just get, as a parent, I am sick and tired of these woke, ridiculous people trying to teach my kids stuff. Like, try it.
Yeah.
Try it with my kids and see what happens.
Absolutely.
And I think there's so many dads that feel like me that are willing to stand up and be like, this is not okay.
Absolutely.
But yeah, the reason they did the bill was because there were books in the school system.
Right. Yeah, we talked about that.
And there were some teachers teaching some of these things. That's why the bill took place, is because it was already going on.
And it's just all it's saying is you can't teach sexuality.
It's in the hands of the parents. Yeah.
To kids who are like
all it says is you have to get parental permission.
Oh, is that all it says?
I mean, like it's not even like it's saying like it's giving the rights to the parents.
Here's the thing. I was a sophomore in high school. Sorry, we're hijacking your PCC.
It's okay. It happens.
I was a sophomore in high school, and we had to have parental permission to watch Monty Python's Search for the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
Because of the humor and because of the religious possible.
I think anything that was PG-13, we had to have a permission slip for. Even when I was younger,
my mom
PG
would
stuff.
not let me watch
PG
it.
as well.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
My mom did not sign my permission slip.
So you couldn't watch Monty Python. That's funny. But to branch off what you're saying, so I apologize for misspeaking on the bill stuff, but to branch off of exactly what you're saying is, from their perspective, from that skewed perspective, the far left, they would look at you speaking up against it and say, well, you're just trying to discriminate against me. You're just trying to tear against me. You don't accept me for who I am. What I love about this clip is this is seemingly someone from the LGBTQ community. She's gay, and she's saying, this is ridiculous. How in the world is this even okay for anybody to say? And she said, there's a chunk of us. She would say that the voices that you're hearing in the media and hearing go against the bill and hearing all these different things, that's the vast minority. That's what she says at the end of it. She was like, it's ridiculous that we are bending society for a fringe community
to sexualize these things to kids.
Absolutely, yeah. So
if a heterosexual man sexualized himself in a public space in front of kids, he would be arrested.
Absolutely, yeah.
100%.
And on that video, on that video, it's a clip
and then be considered a sex offender for the rest of his life.
On this video, there's a
by the way.
There's a drag queen running around with, I would assume, fake boobies. I don't know exactly what they are, but I don't know if it's like
it would have to be if it was a drag.
Yeah, but like I've heard of some drag queens actually getting implants where it's it's a part of their bodies, but like that one's like all over the place. Anyway, it's a half naked drag queen running around with fake boobies bouncing around,
more like 3/4 naked.
And hanging out,
jumping around, going everywhere. There's tassels on them and everything. And then he runs up to a little child and takes a cash tip with them, and then runs up to the stage and continues dancing, taking more money as they're going along. And so there's children in this audience seeing all of this happen.
Great parenting choices, by the way.
Exactly. Yeah. So like, this person, she's exposing like how absolutely ridiculous it is, and she's saying we as a community, or she's like, that community established equality a while back. Now it's about supremacy. Now it's about forcing this agenda down everybody's throat. And I agree completely. We've said this for a while, that it's ridiculous that we're seeing society bend to the will of a minority. It's just a very loud minority.
And my dad took me to a strip club, CPS would be involved.
Absolutely.
They would come and take me away from my dad.
There's a video that my buddy Jess Martin sent me a couple years ago.
Hey, Jess.
Maybe 3 years ago. And it's a clip or it's not a clip, it's a whole video of this ex-Russian spy talking about the agenda of the Russians and how they're like, it's like a 20 or 25 years, it's like a long time, I don't know exactly the date, but like a long time, more than 20 years, plan of how they will basically crumble the American culture.
Yeah, it's an old video.
Listen to all these things. It's like from the 70s, I think.
Yeah.
And it's funny that like this is part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it makes me think that like this has never been about the minority group of people and equality. This has been about taking advantage of an opportunity to use a minority group like that to crumble the culture, the American culture, to make us weak. So I think that the biggest fallacy with that at this point is that they started going after kids. Because I promise you're going to see parents rise up across the country over and over and over again, being like, don't mess with our kids. As there might be a parent that lets their kid give tips to a drag queen, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of parents to that one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That would say no.
Yeah. And I'm thankful that even though we don't align with this person with where they are, I'm thankful that, I think I said a couple weeks ago, that there's so many lacks of rational arguments of what seems like sane people in the midst of all these things happening. And this person who, by the LGBTQ standards, they have to accept this person. They like
she's part of
exactly. So
their
like
culture,
me as a straight white male, they can be like, well, we don't want to listen to straight white males, but they can easily ignore me. But looking at this lesbian,
you're 27 feet tall.
Exactly. Yeah. How can you even ignore me? Based off this lesbian coming forward and speaking by their own standards of a community, they have to listen to them. And so what's great about it is they obviously won't, based off the far left won't in regards to what she's saying.
And it's really just like making them more and more removed from even their their group.
So they're going to isolate themselves more and more.
Yeah. And I'm as a society, as a culture, I'm very, very thankful for that. That these types of voices are getting shared around social media, getting airtime, as it were. So it says it doesn't really like our goal in the midst of interacting with society is Jesus. That's not this person's goal, but I think it's a good step it's a step in a good direction for society to have the majority be like, hey, we need to be louder because these people have all the megaphones, all the airtime getting shared like crazy. And it's such a vast minority. Let's speak.
Minority.
It's a huge, tiny little bit.
It's a vast minority.
I like that. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I want to draw that.
The minority is overwhelming. It's such a small amount, it will overwhelm you.
It's there's a news article that I don't know, came out a few years ago, and it says something like 40% of Americans, a vast majority, say it's like go back to school, buddy.
That's so funny.
Yeah, the percentages thing is kind of ridiculous in how they use it like that. Yeah, it's dumb.
So, Ryan, what are we talking about today?
Hey, Pierce. Well, today we are talking about miracles, and specifically the miracles of Jesus that we see in the New Testament, and what he did among the Israelites and the Gentiles as he was here in his public ministry on the earth.
Ryan.
Yeah, Pierce.
Aren't miracles just to heal people?
Come on, Pierce.
Oh, gosh.
Well, actually, Pierce, while there is benefit, definitely personal benefit to the people that Christ was healing, the intent of the miracles in the scripture for Christ was, the intent of the miracles in the scripture was always to reveal Jesus as God. And so we three here, we'll just start with this. We three here believe that miracles still take place.
Yeah.
But we believe that miracles still take place in line with how they took place in the scripture, and that was to reveal Christ as God.
Yeah.
And so when Christ would come in and start doing miracles, one of the things early on, we see this in Matthew, he's healing people. My ear itched and I went to scratch it, but I have headphones on.
It's like there's people trying to take a drink with face masks on.
Yeah.
Have y'all seen that?
Yeah. I was like, wait a minute. But one of the things that Jesus does as he's casting out demons from people is now your ears itch. I know, right? It's like, everybody's itching. It's like yawning.
Yeah.
Not yawning.
Don't say yawn.
Yeah. But he's healing people. He's casting demons out of people. And the crowds are going, man, we have never seen anybody do this before.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying they're saying of Christ, they're saying, who is this man that even the demons obey him? And Jesus, when he gets into the boat with his disciples and there's a stormy sea, he's sleeping and he's in the boat, he's asleep. The disciples come to him and they say, don't you even care that we're perishing? Don't you care that we're about to die? He gets up and he says, peace be still, and the winds and the waves stop. And even the disciples are like, who is this that even the winds and the waves obey him? And so Jesus is doing these things. I think we miss this a lot. In Matthew 8, Jesus is at Peter's mother-in-law's house, or at Peter's house maybe, and then the mother-in-law is there. She's sick. She has a fever, and Jesus heals her, and she gets up and makes them dinner. I mean, like, I don't know, like Jesus heard that like she can cook,
Yeah, he was like, what are you doing being sick?
You're not feeling well?
Okay, wait. This is the one miracle where it wasn't about proclaiming himself as God. He's like, I'm just hungry.
Just hungry.
Oh, you're sick? Hey, I got you.
If this is your very first episode for us to listen to, that's a joke, okay? It's a joke. You can tell because we're laughing. But yeah, so Jesus heals her. She gets up. She starts preparing food for them. And then all the other people in the area who are sick start coming to Peter's house, and Jesus heals them all. And it says this, this is 8:16 of Matthew. It says, when evening came, they brought to him many who were demon-possessed. He cast out the spirits with the word, and he healed all who were sick. And then we end there, but we got to keep reading. Verse 17 says, this was to fulfill what was spoken through Isaiah the prophet. And he's quoting Isaiah 53 here. He bore our infirmities and he carried away our diseases. Or he took our sicknesses and carried away our diseases. So Isaiah 53, contextually, the end of Isaiah 52, the last 3 verses of Isaiah 52, and the 12 verses of Isaiah 53, these 15 verses tell the entire story, basically, of Jesus Christ. From the foreshadowing of Jesus Christ to him coming to Israel, to him being rejected by Israel, to him being crucified, to him dying, to him being raised from the dead, to him coming again and bringing people to himself through salvation. Like, it's a beautiful 15-verse gospel. It's super cool. But one of the things that this verse says, or this text in Isaiah says, is that Jesus bore our sicknesses and carried our diseases. Matthew, and I'm so glad this is here because I think it silences a lot of wayward conversations on the topic. But Matthew right here says that when Jesus was healing all these people, he did so to fulfill what Isaiah said about the Messiah. And what's super key about that is the first 6 verses of Isaiah 53 are talking about how Christ would be received among the Israelites. And then it gets into his death. So this is very specific. It is that Jesus among the Jews was going, that when the Messiah came, one of the things the Messiah was going to do among the Jews was heal the sick.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus comes in doing this. And it's important to note that the people are all going, we have never seen anything like this.
Yeah.
There hasn't been anything that's happened like this since Elisha.
Yeah.
Since Elisha. You're talking hundreds of years earlier. No one's seen anything like this. No one's grandparents have seen anything like this. And they're going, man, this is amazing. And all of it wasn't to amaze them. All of it was to prove that Jesus was God.
That he was the Isaiah 53 Messiah that Jews recognize as the Messiah.
Yeah, right. Which is why Peter says in Acts chapter 2, in his first sermon, he says, this Jesus who you crucified was attested to you to be, this provision, this salvation by the signs and the miracles he did. Like he revealed himself to be God to you. How? How did he reveal this? By the signs and the miracles that he did. And so I think we kind of relegate and deflate the importance of the miracles. Not that the individual person who had been crippled their whole life and now is leaping didn't have a benefit.
Right.
But if we make that the whole of it, then we're missing Jesus in it.
Yeah, it's funny that my dad's always made this point. I think it's genius that like we are stoked about him bringing Lazarus back to life, but we forget that at some point later, Lazarus died again.
Right. Lazarus is still going to die again.
So if the point was just Lazarus's life, then at some point the miracle, if you will, like wore off enough where he died again.
The person in John 9 who was born blind gets to see, but eventually dies.
Right.
Right.
So the essence of what we're saying is that the miracles Jesus did were to tie him to the prophecies in the Old Testament that proclaim the Messiah, because he was doing these things. So in other words, another way to say it is Jesus is actually doing these miracles to reveal himself as God. Okay, maybe my favorite example of this is his first miracle, wedding in Cana.
Yeah, you like this one.
Oh, I love it.
It's become one of your favorites in the last few years.
Because the story my dad told me. So my dad has been taking groups to Israel for the last few years, and they were, I think his second trip, they were in Cana, where Jesus' first miracle was. And so I didn't know this, and he didn't actually know it either until he went to Cana. But Cana, the area of Cana, is a wine country, or at least was. I don't know if it still is, but was wine country in the time of Jesus. And so it would be like Napa Valley in California. Like, they were known for their wine. It was a wine area. And the people in Cana actually worshiped Bacchus, the god of wine. And so my dad said he's going into some of these houses in Cana, and one of the houses he went into, actually a few of the houses he went into, had like tile mosaic depictions of the god Bacchus on the floor.
Wow.
So even in their houses, they're like proclaiming the glory of their god Bacchus as the god of wine. So here's the beautiful thing about the miracle. So Jesus goes to this wedding in Cana where they are known for making this phenomenal wine, and they worship the god of wine. And he goes in to the wedding. They run out of wine. And so what does Jesus do? He takes water and he turns it into wine. And when they taste it, they say, that's weird. Usually they bring out the best wine at the beginning while everybody is still sober. And then as the night goes on, they bring out, in essence, the cheaper wine because people are more drunk. And they said, how is it that we're getting the best wine now? So here's what Jesus is in essence doing. He's saying, you worship the god of wine. You're known for your wine. So you're saying your God makes the best wine. And here's what he's saying. I make better wine than your God.
Yeah.
You think your God is God because he makes good wine? I make better wine. What is he saying? I'm God. His very first miracle literally was just a proclamation to the people of Cana that he's God.
That's so
So
dope.
even the first miracle he did that had nothing to do with alcohol, had everything to do with a proclamation of who he was. The first miracle was in the same vein, like him proclaiming himself to be God.
Yeah.
And it's consistent throughout all the miracles of Jesus. And I would even say the miracles that you see in like Acts and post-Acts, and even now today, I think, is the miracles that followers of Jesus do now are associating themselves with Jesus with the intention of proclaiming Jesus as God. It's never changed.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love, I moved away from it. I love branching off of that, like every single miracle kind of been pointing to that. Jesus' prayer right before he raises Lazarus from the dead. I went to one chapter before. There we go.
Come on, man.
I know. So Jesus, right before he's standing outside of the tomb, and he says, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this on account of the people standing around me, that they might believe that you sent me.
Yeah.
And so as he's praying that, he's like, God, we're good. Like, I don't need to be praying this right now. We know what we're doing. I'm saying this so they look at me giving you the glory, and so that they will see that this is you working, that you've sent me, that I am who I said I am.
Well, even the beginning of that story, right? John 11. So Jesus gets news that Lazarus is sick.
Yeah.
And he could have gone and healed Lazarus. He's healed other sick people, right? We see that already in Matthew 8 in this podcast. But he's healed other sick people, and he goes, no, he won't die. This is for the glory of God. And then he tells the disciples, okay, Lazarus is asleep. Let's go wake him up. And one of the disciples, I forget who it is. I don't know if it actually outs the person in John 11, but one of the disciples says, well, if he's asleep, then he'll wake up on his own. And Jesus is like, he's dead. Like, you idiots, like he doesn't say you idiots. God's more gracious than that. But he's like, but this doesn't result in his death. This is for the glory of God. And then he's like, he's asleep now. Let's go wake him up. And they're like, wait, but he's asleep. And it's like, won't he wake up on his own? And so Jesus goes to wake him up. But the whole purpose, right, was for the glory of God.
Yeah.
That this was to reveal who God was. And I think I'll say it this way. Growing up, hearing the story of Lazarus, one of my absolute favorite stories. And I love, I'm going to date myself here a little bit, but there was a Carmen song
Nice.
About
Satan.
about
Bite the dust.
oh man, there is in the vast expanse of a timeless place.
No.
Just kidding. there was this Carmen song about everybody in heaven, and everybody's Samson and Daniel and all these people are talking about what God had done through them, and then Lazarus is there, and he's kind of talking about himself, and then all of a sudden he hears Lazarus. And then
I remember this.
He gets ripped out of heaven, basically. It's, Carmen. Carmen was cool in the 80s and 90s, early 90s, very early 90s, late 80s. But I don't know if Carmen, I liked Carmen. Man.
I was about to say, I think this is a matter of perspective.
Yeah, it is. It totally is. I was kind of nerdy, geeky, but I think, so I loved that story as a kid and loved that story even more with Carmen's kind of artistic take on it.
Yeah.
What no one ever said to me, ever, no one ever pointed me to John chapter 12, where it says that because of Lazarus, people were leaving and putting their faith in Jesus. So people are literally coming to visit Lazarus. They're seeing this man that had formerly been dead and is now alive.
Yeah.
And the result is that they're going away, putting their faith in Jesus. And so the Pharisees, who now have determined to put Christ to death, have also determined to put Lazarus to death simply because people are believing in Christ on his account. And so the miracle here for Lazarus wasn't, John 9, all right? John 9 may be my favorite miracle in the whole of the Bible. And so Jesus is walking along with his disciples, and they see a man born blind, and they say, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? It was a Jewish understanding of sin. They believed that you were going to have a physical ailment. Either you had sinned in the womb, was their belief, or that your parents had sinned.
It's so funny.
Yeah. I know.
Pulled on my umbilical cord too hard.
Yeah.
I told you not
kicked
to.
my mom. Yeah. So Jesus says neither this man sinned nor his parents, but that the works of God could be displayed, right? So this man gets healed by Jesus. It's one of my favorite stories because Jesus spits in the dirt, makes mud for this guy's eyes, tells the guy to go away and wash. And he has never seen Jesus face to face because he was blind, right?
Yeah.
So then he's going around and he's telling people, yeah, this man Jesus healed me. Well, the Pharisees don't like this. And over the course of the day, as they're interrogating him, he goes, the man Jesus healed me. And then he says, this man must be a prophet. And then later he says, this man came from God. And then later when he meets Jesus face to face, he says, you're Lord. And there's this progression of him kind of coming to terms with, man, this guy's the real deal.
Yeah.
And this guy stands in front of the people saying he came from God. Like we have never heard of anybody opening the eyes of a man born blind. And the Pharisees have to acknowledge that. Right. They haven't ever heard of this either.
Right.
And yet they're still denying that Jesus is God. But the point was always to reveal that Jesus is God.
Yeah.
So I love it when Jesus, this is a side note, but I love it when Jesus comes up to the guy and he goes, do you believe in the Son of Man? And he goes, show me who he is so I can believe.
Yeah.
Because he straight up doesn't recognize Jesus because he hadn't seen him before. And he's like, it's me, the one you're looking at. And he's like, I believe, Lord, and he worships him. But it's Zacchaeus coming down from the tree and proclaiming that Jesus is God. It's Bartimaeus following after Jesus and leaping and proclaiming that Jesus is God. It's taking it away from the miracles of Jesus. It's Acts chapter 3, Peter and John healing the man who had been crippled from birth. And he follows them into the temple court and he's proclaiming that these men have healed me by the power of Christ. And Peter's like, man, look, we didn't do this by anything that we have. And it's an opportunity again to proclaim Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we miss that.
It's always been that.
Always
been that. I mean, you could even make a case, if I know this is stretching a little bit, but going back farther, the things that God did in the Old Testament that we would call miraculous were always to point to him as God.
Yeah. Always.
Plagues.
Yeah. Always.
To show that he's greater than the gods of Egypt, the Mount Carmel, which is a pretty funny one. So it's always been what we call miraculous things has always been about pointing to God.
Oh, for sure.
And I think what's sad, to give a little modern day context for it, I think it's sad that at some point, I know when it is, but at some point in the 1900s, at least in this part of the world, miracles became more about my own power.
Yeah, look what I can do.
Look what I can do. And
look at how big my faith is or whatever.
Right. And admittedly, there's sometimes man, if I could just start doing that, I could probably get one of those dope jets that those guys have. And I'm joking, obviously. But it's sad that it became that. It became so tainted where what we call miracles nowadays, we've never had the context. I guess it's not we forget. We've never had the context that these have always been about pointing people to Jesus.
Yeah.
The stories I hear from like other parts of the world,
Right.
and what we would call miracles that happen today. Every story I've ever heard has been pointed back to Jesus.
Yes.
And that's why we're not cessationists, meaning we don't believe any of the miraculous. Well, they call miraculous. It's not that. Any of the gifts that they call miraculous. We don't believe any of the gifts have ceased to be, that the gifts still exist. And so that there are people still with giftings that will allow them to do those kind of things for the sake. This is the difference, I think, with us, is for the sake of showing the world that Jesus. And that's what miracles have always been about. So be leery of someone if they talk about miracles from a context that isn't pointed towards Jesus.
Yes.
I'm also recognizing that like there are things that the enemy can do that could seem miraculous to us, the powerful things.
In Revelation, talking about who we frequently call the Antichrist or the abomination of desolation, like it talks about him and his prophet being able to do miracles and signs, which will deceive the people and cause them to follow after him. So yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting thing though, because as far as I can tell, apart from that there, and in Exodus, the magicians of Pharaoh mimicking the first 3 plagues. Apart from those 2 things, I can't think of somebody else who's doing signs and miracles in the scripture that wasn't attached to God. You know what I mean?
What about the girl?
That's in Acts 16. Yeah, she's fortune telling by the demon. All right. So I think that helps, actually. That helps. So what we have is at least 3 cases and maybe more. In each case, the object of the girl who's fortune telling, the people are mad when Paul casts the demon out of her because their income is gone now. Right. The Antichrist is having people come after him. The magicians in Egypt are the object of that miracle. Like, this is what the magicians did. In each case, the miracle is directed back at that person. Look at what they could do. Whereas the miracles that are worked by Christ and then also worked in the name of God or in the name of Christ, always, like you said, Micah, point back to Christ. So it's probably a hard line that if the miracle that you are seeing someone do points back to the person, it's probably not of God. I'm trying to think. There's something in the back of my brain that I'm not finding. It's there. Give me a second. Y'all talk amongst yourselves.
So I just want to tell a quick story because I think some of the things that God does, stories I've heard. So here's one story. I can't obviously reveal like a whole lot of details because of the safety of these people, but there were some missionaries from Southeast Asia telling a group of us from America a story. They lived in an area where there were a whole bunch of islands. And so there was a people group that lived on an island that had never been reached from the outside. It's similar to what's the South America people that those 5 missionaries from the U.S. like 3 of them got killed.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Back in the 50s. Into the Spears, the movie. But it was similar to that, but it's Southeast Asia. So this island of people had never had any contact with outside people. So there's this group of followers of Jesus that felt like God was, drawing them towards his people to go reach them with the gospel. So they pulled up in a canoe one day to the beach. And these people were known for being very violent. Not the missionaries, the the people on the island. We're gonna kill you unless you believe in Jesus. No, so they kind of expected to be met with violence, but when they pulled up in their canoe on the beach, the kids from the tribe ran out from the forest and greeted them and like brought them into the to the village, and they met the people from the village and stayed a couple days, got to know the village leaders, the village elders, and then they left and basically sent a message, took a canoe back and sent him a message a few weeks later and just said, hey, can we come back and have a conversation with you? We would love to come live with you and be part of your people. And so they went back after they agreed, went back and sat down with the elders and said, we'd love to come, live with you and be part of your people. And the elders agreed. And the missionaries said, hey, out of curiosity, why did you say yes? Because you've never let anybody from the outside come in before. And the elders said, well, 2 reasons. One, our kids are scared of everybody from the outside. So anytime someone from the outside comes even close to our island, the kids run and hide in the forest. He said, second, while you were here, we poisoned your food and you didn't die.
Wow.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And so
That's great.
yeah, so they got to live with them, and I haven't heard since then what's been going on.
Yeah.
But like, I'm sure they're there with the gospel. But I mean, it's funny, we think like that seems so, to some people will say like that seems so outrageous. Why is that outrageous?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we believe that God could send fire from the sky on Mount Carmel to light an altar that has been saturated with water, but we don't believe that God can keep people from dying from poison for the sake of proclaiming Jesus. Like, I don't understand that. Like, I have no doubt that there are freaking idiots who misuse the name of Jesus to do what they call miracles for their own personal gain. And I think that Paul writes about those kind of guys. Peter writes about those kind of guys. Jude writes about those kind of guys. I'm going to call them waterless clouds, blemishes that our love feasts, probably stronger language that
unreasoning animals.
I would like to use. I get it, but that doesn't mean that we negate the fact that God is continuing to use whatever means possible to proclaim to a culture within the cultural context that he's God.
Yeah.
He did it at Cana. He did it in Egypt. He did it in Israel. He did it, I forget where the girl was with the fortune telling. He did it in all these other places. The assumption is, I mean, this might be a stretch, but that when Paul says, I know a guy who's seen the third heaven, it's a possibility that he's speaking of when he got stoned.
Yeah.
And that he potentially even died and then came back to life. You know what I mean? Like, why are we shocked at these things? But I think that the reason that it becomes such a awkward conversation is because our modern day context of miracles is these freaking idiots on TV who say, come pay and come to my conference or whatever, and then I'll heal you. That's our context of miracles, instead of understanding that the simplicity of what you said from Matthew tying it to Isaiah, that this is a fulfillment. Jesus is doing these miracles to fulfill what the prophets spoke of the coming Messiah, so that the Israelites would see that Jesus is the Messiah. It's always been about proclaiming Jesus.
Yeah.
Always. We can't get sidetracked because there's idiots doing it wrong.
Yeah. Well, this has helped me actually. I mean, and temper this if I'm wrong. But I think this has helped. This conversation right now has helped broaden my scope of understanding those types of miracles happening, because for some reason in my mind it was like we're only talking about as if a believer goes up to somebody, lays hands on them or whatever. But like, this is very much just the Lord working for the sake of his gospel, for the sake of his word prevailing. And so even in my own life, I should have died when I was 11 years old. I was in a 4-wheeler accident, had a blood spot on the brain that cleared up overnight. It just disappeared. And both the technician and the doctor that I was seeing at the time said, I've never seen of or heard anything like this ever happening. Yeah. Like you should, like we should, even if you lived, you would have this blood spot in your brain that we would have to work with, contain, do something like this, but it's gone. Like they ran a CAT scan one day, the next day after I had surgery, they ran a CAT scan the next, compared the two images, and it's just gone. Yeah. And so there's a lot of things that I had like attributed to that at the time. I didn't
know that. I knew about your wreck.
Yeah. But that's the thing, is that like, I was like, oh, it's just a medical anomaly, instead of giving glory where glory is due. I think the Lord worked a ton through that. I've heard stories from my mom. I've heard stories, secondhand stories about my dad in the midst of those things happening, like how me getting in that accident and ultimately surviving shaped my mom out of her identity as like a divorced woman, broken and stuff like that. So there's cool testimonies that have come from it, but I don't think I've given glory where glory should be due, because it's just like, oh, it's just something medical, instead of acknowledging where I am now and how like, and I'm not tooting my own horn by any means, but acknowledging how the Lord has used me in positions as a pastor, in positions as a preacher, as positions in different people's lives, and how if I was dead, that wouldn't have happened. Like I couldn't have been a vessel of his word, a vessel of the gospel, if I had died when I was 11 years old. And so I think that helps shape my understanding of where I am.
That's a good point. I wonder sometimes how, this is a little sidetrack, but how often we are scared as believers of death because we misunderstood what the life is about. So like, I have a hard time believing that, that if God's using you, that he's going to just like let a blood spot kill you.
Yeah, exactly.
I've gotten some dangerous places in the world. You have too, Ryan. I didn't go into those thinking like, well, I've got to pay off my mortgage.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? Like,
Exactly.
which I wouldn't mind paying off my mortgage, but
Mhm.
like, that's not my mindset. My mindset is like, I want to be part of the gospel ministry that's going on across
Yeah.
the world. And I feel like if God's still using me, then I'm good.
Yeah.
And if God chooses to, you know, allow my death for the sake of his glory, fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think we too often hold on to life
Mhm.
for our own personal gain instead of understanding that God can use our life for whatever he wants. It's a little sidetrack, but I think it
Yeah.
goes in with miracles. Like, I mean, I have a story like that with Hayes. Like,
Mhm. Yeah.
how often do we see these things happen in our life, and whether they would be tied to the same kind of miracles that we're talking about here, that's
Sure.
another conversation. But like, again, the sidetrack is, what if we gave God the acknowledgement and credit for the things
Yeah.
that go on for the sake of his glory and people
Mhm.
seeing God working in us? With Hayes, man, it was like one of those moments where we had an opportunity. I'm not gonna tell the whole story, but where we were able to tell the doctors, like, we prayed for this
Yeah.
and it happened.
Mhm.
And you can believe what you want, but like, you told us yesterday our son was gonna have to have another heart.
Mhm.
And today he says it's fine. And you're telling me overnight it
Yeah.
changed. The doctor's response was, the person who read the graphs must have been a bad reader.
Mhm.
And I was like, or we prayed for it.
Yeah. Yeah. How often does that happen? Like, yeah, if we break that down, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
We even last night we were talking about at
You got some
or-
guy out there that just tells everybody your heart's bad.
yeah, exactly. Oh, we had the bad reader that day. I guess we need to fire him. We had someone at our youth a few weeks ago that was talking about her story, and I believe that she had a heart transplant. I think you know who I'm talking about.
Reagan?
Yeah. Okay, I didn't know if I was allowed to say names or anything, but she had a heart transplant when she was really young,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
And so I remember when Reagan was born, I was friends with Rex at the time. I don't know if I was in his class at the time, but I knew when all of that was going on. And that's when all things clicked for me. Whenever she said that, I was like, "You're Reagan." And what we had gotten to in the conversation of our breakout group was, do you guys see evidence of the Lord empowering you? In whatever facet that means. Does that mean like character change within you or just in life? And she had talked about how her being 15 years old now, she's so thankful for these opportunities to share. She's like, just medically, by definition, I am a living miracle.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and she's like, so I get to tell people about God through that. And how awesome is that the Lord's using a 15-year-old to proclaim his glory through what happened, that she like literally, she was like months old, right? Whenever all that was going down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like,
Less than a year she had, about a year she had a heart transplant.
exactly.
And
man,
I
it's
think
wild.
that we often talk about those stories, like, and we forget that sometimes God even uses death in the same way.
Absolutely.
I mean, my mom died when she was 59.
Yeah.
From a cancer that a lot of people live from.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what it was. I think that the number of people that got to hear the gospel,
Yeah.
that, you know, that's how God was using that situation, which sucks.
It does.
You know,
yeah.
but like, I think we have to recognize that, again, this is a little sidetrack, that God's using us for his glory,
Mhm.
and we need to give him acknowledgement of that. And I think if we go back to the miracles and not think of these as like these weird anomalies that we don't understand, but recognize that these are things that God is using contextually within the culture to proclaim Jesus as the Messiah.
Yeah.
Even if we don't, we could talk about this maybe in another podcast, reasons why we don't think we see it in the same way in the United States of America now.
Yeah.
But I think that it doesn't change the fact that God still wants to be lifted up and recognized as the God who provides salvation through Jesus. And we got to take the means that are available to us within the context of our culture to do that. Even if we don't see miracles happen in exactly the same way, that has to be our heart. So what we can learn from that is have the same heart to proclaim Jesus.
Yes.
In anything that happens for his glory.
Yes.
And not for ours. And I think that's what was going on with the miracles.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and you've mentioned a couple of times like that sometimes it's even in the death, you know, but like the point of the spear, the tip of the spear or whatever, the end of the spear, where Jim Elliot died.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's right, Jim Elliot.
Yeah, it was Ecuador.
Okay.
His death and then his family going back and being missionaries there, his wife, Elizabeth Elliot, right?
Yeah.
Because they went back, the people came to faith.
Yeah.
After her husband had been killed by these people. And
the dude who killed him got saved.
Yeah. And
Wow.
and so like it's one of these things, Stephen in Acts, his death advanced the gospel across the world.
Yeah.
And I think we miss that Jesus died for the glory of God.
Mm-hmm.
And in Philippians 2, it says that we should have the same attitude as Christ Jesus, who submitted himself to obedience to death, even death on the cross.
Mm-hmm.
That this idea that my life and my death, Paul says this in Philippians 1, that I can glorify God by my life or by my death,
Mm-hmm.
that whether God uses miraculous things in our lives, saving your life, Pierce, saving Hayes, Micah, doing those kinds of things that are miraculous, it's short-sighted to think that's just for Pierce and that's just for Hayes.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's for the gospel of Christ, in the same way that if God brings my life to an end in a way that's spectacular.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen's being stoned to death and Jim Elliot, like if he does that, the cross of Christ was for his glory.
Mm-hmm.
And if God uses my death to advance the gospel, then like man, I know it sounds so simplistic, but if we would just come to the place where we'd say the gospel, Jesus is core, like you end every episode with, Pierce.
Yeah.
If we would make it about Christ rather than about each individual. And again, I could tell you dozens of stories where God did little, tiny, seemingly insignificant things for me to get me from one place to the next or whatever, that are tiny. I mean, like things that we would look at and we'd go, yeah, that miracle is $1 miracle, kind of thing. But like that dollar made the big difference in my life in that moment or whatever. And yet all of that is for the glory of God, and so that Christ can be made known, and so that Christ can be proclaimed. And it's Jesus. Like I was telling somebody the other day, we were having a conversation, and they're like, man, it's just so simple. Like, it just seems like everything's about Jesus. And I was like,
yes,
I know. Like we used to make a joke about it all the time. The answer is Jesus. It's always about Jesus. And we would kind of do that tongue in cheek when I was in youth. But like now as a 47-year-old person, here I am, some 35 years later from 12-year-old Ryan. And I'm going, man, it really is about Jesus though. It really is.
Yep.
Absolutely. Gosh, I had something on the tip of my tongue that I was going to talk about as well. That's what it was. Yeah, just branching off what you were saying, allowing the glory of Jesus, the glory of the Lord to be the filter by which we understand so many of these things. And I used to teach a long time ago. I don't remember how I would phrase it, but I was showing how these different instances where Christ was proclaiming himself to be Lord, and I would frame like him calming the seas and these different things about him showing his lordship, his mastery, his authority over nature. And that is, we get that from the miracles for sure.
Sure.
We get that from these things, but that's not the Lord's intention in the midst of this.
Right.
And so but in that same frame of mind, acknowledging that the Lord is over everything, and we're not looking at things as anomalies, but rather intentional actions by God within the midst of his creation, that God is the Lord of all creation, and he's very intentional in the midst of all that. So if we frame that mindset as well for us, acknowledging that the Lord is over all things, we can then look at these while they are individual circumstances, much more broader than that, of the Lord is over this and working in this and being intentional in this. How is the Lord getting his glory and pointing people to the gospel in the midst of this, and viewing it that way instead of just saying, that's cool, pat some person on the back and be like, neato gang, and then walk away. Oftentimes like how I looked at my life back when I was 11 years old, be like, that's crazy. And then just going about my business instead of saying, praise God.
Yeah.
Praise God. Glory be to him. And hopefully there was more. I wish I I was 11 years old, and I don't know if I would even call myself a believer back then, but I wish that I had the frame of mind to look at the technicians and be like, God's pretty great, isn't he? Like, you've never seen something like that? Yeah. God can do that.
Yep.
Yeah.
You saying to the people, we prayed last night and this happened.
My hope is that my kids that will be the context that they'll grow up in.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's the context I grew up in, which is why I think it was so easy for me to point to Jesus.
100%.
Yeah. You had pretty good context.
Yeah. I mean, it was what I knew. Like I recognized, I watched God do crazy cool things growing up for us. And I might not have recognized those as being from God. I might, like you said, Pierce, maybe just thought they were these weird anomalies.
Until you matured. And then all of those things become quickened in you as, look at what God has done.
Right. Well, I mean, even when I was a kid, I didn't recognize them as anomalies because my parents.
Oh, I see.
I was like, without my parents, I would have thought those were anomalies. But because they were actually pointing, like, look what God has done.
Yeah.
That was the context I knew.
I got you.
And so it was really easy to see those things, and recognize where those things were coming from. And also, I think, pushed me to a place where I asked God.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like, where that was my tendency. For whatever reason, finances is the only thing I don't ask God about.
I was probably 12, and I had just 2 years earlier had kind of this big growth moment in my life where I really felt like God challenged me to put my faith in him, not for salvation, but for day to day. Like I'd been a believer for a long time, but I was about 12, and we just weren't making ends meet as a family. And I think it was probably a little bit, it was done genuinely. I don't know that I would do it the exact same way today, but my heart at 12 years old was genuine. And I took a piece of notebook paper and I prayed and I said, my dad will have a raise by this date. And I set a date, I think 2 weeks in the future. And I taped it to my bookshelf. And I just said, God, you know what we need as a family. And you know that we need more money. And I'm praying for this. And I just had it there on my bookshelf in my room. And every day I just thanked God that we were going to have a raise. And the day before that date, my dad got a raise. And I remember my parents dismissing it as, well, you know, I mean, your dad, he was due for a raise. It was that time of year. And like, but I'm sitting there like, no, like this is what I've prayed for, you know? And so that was kind of like the first moment in my life. I was like, then I got stupid and I was like, and I'm going to have a girlfriend by this time, you know, like, because
you were praying that for a very
long time, because the next instance, what it became about in that moment was me.
Yep.
Because I'd made the mistake of thinking in the first place that it was about my family, where what God was really doing was growing my faith.
He was showing you who he was.
He was showing me who he was, but it would be years before I'd catch that.
I gotcha.
And I thought, oh, God is doing, like, look at the power I have. It immediately became something different to me, and I started trying to manipulate God,
right?
And force his hand, if you will,
right? Right.
And none of the other things that I ever put pieces of notebook paper up on my wall ever came to be,
right?
And I think it was the heart. The heart had shifted because
I know
my first time, my heart was genuine. Like it was genuine.
Yeah, I know that's a little bit of a sidetrack from miracles, but I think maybe here's a thought. Here's a thought. Like, why is it that we believe that God is capable of raising the dead, but we don't believe he's capable of helping us get through this awkward financial situation?
Sure.
So like, why would we think that God doesn't care?
Yeah.
I think I told you guys this years ago. I was convicted of that mentality. I would think I'd just been married like a year, that I would like only ask, like involve God in my life in things that I thought mattered.
Yeah.
And it was just one day I was convicted of it, and one day I couldn't find my keys and I was going to be late for work. And I was just like, God, look, I can't find my keys. Can you help me find my keys? And that shifted something in me where I recognized finding my keys is a little bit insignificant in the scope of like the world story.
Yeah.
But the idea is that God is involved in my life. Like I am a child of God, redeemed by the blood of Jesus Christ. Why do I think it's a big deal to ask him to find my keys?
Yeah. I personally do not know anyone better at that than my sister Haley. Haley literally prays about everything. Like, I mean, everything. She's just like, man, there's just nothing too little to say to God. So like if she's having some friends over and she's going to bake, I mean, she hasn't told me this story, but this is like how she is, right? Like if she's going to bake something for these ladies that are coming over to do Bible study or whatever, she can't find the recipe. She'll be just like, she'll pray, God, where did I put that recipe? And she it blows my mind. And what's super cool about that is there have been a couple of times, once I lost, back when I was doing Higher Rock Ministries full time, I lost our checkbook and I needed to pay bills and I could not find it anywhere. And I called her, I was like, look.
And he's like, I will not log on to this on the laptop. I will not get online and pay this. I will write it.
I know,
I will write a check. Where's the checkbook?
But I was like, man, like, or things like that. And I was like, Haley, you gotta jump in here with me because
I can't find it.
Because for her, it's so natural. Like you almost like feel silly going to some people and going, hey, like pray that I, whatever. But like my sister Haley, I think she's better at that than anybody I've ever known. Like she just, everything is something that she takes to God because she knows that God cares, but also
I think it's the correct perspective.
Yeah.
When you see God doing miracles in the way he did it through the scriptures.
Yep.
And then somehow we don't come out at the end of that going, God can do whatever he wants to do. Why would I not ask?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that God always answers in the way we want him to answer, but
right.
Why wouldn't you ask?
But if all of these things, if all of them are meant to draw us deeper into the knowledge of who he is and deeper into a place of understanding who he is. Maybe we're shortchanging ourselves by not. Maybe you're not on the side where like miracles are all about me. Maybe you're on the side where like, man, I have a hard time believing that they're there, and why would God do anything for me? Like, man, like God wants to make himself known. He continues to want to make himself known.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I think it's there's so many cool things that God does.
There's a difference from believing, like maybe you're cessationist that believes that there's not a gift of like these things. There's a difference between believing that gift has ceased and believing that God does miracles.
Yes.
Because then you would be like, well, God can't raise the dead. Which Paul would say then your faith is void.
Yeah.
So there's a difference between the conversation about the gifting and the conversation about whether God can and does do whatever he wants to do in that regard. So you got to separate those out. So this is a little bit of
all over the place.
All over the place.
I think that's partly my fault. So, but
it's a miracle we got through this.
It's a miracle, man.
It's gonna take a miracle.
That's right.
That's from The Princess Bride.
It's been a long time since I've seen that.
Do you think it'll work? It'll take a miracle. They've just seen Miracle Max, right?
Oh,
you know, and
that's
Wesley.
They take him to the people after he gets tortured.
Yes,
to bring him back to life.
Yeah, and so Wesley is dead, and he's like, well, he's not dead. He's mostly dead, which is completely different. And so Miracle Max gives him this concoction, and he and his wife, you know, are sending them off to go storm the castle. And they're like, have fun storming the castles, boys.
Yeah. And
his wife goes, do you think it'll work? And Miracle Max goes, it'll take a miracle. You know. Anyway, spoilers if you haven't seen that.
Spoilers, wow.
If you haven't, where have you been for the last 35 years?
True, yeah.
Has it only been 35?
Yeah.
Wow.
Simpler view of, well, I don't know what, because this just kind of went from miracles of Jesus to miracles to acts of God.
Simpler view is the workings of God, miracles, or whatever you want to call them, have always been about pointing to him as the provider of salvation.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one that'll shift your perspective, not only with you witnessing things either within your life or hearing stories, but also as you begin to pray for those things, just like Ryan pointed out earlier. It's not taking advantage of God or trying to force God's hand or being selfish in those prayers, but Lord, reveal yourself through this. We're lifting up this to you right now. So you might glorify yourself and either bring about healing, bring about change, whatever that may be that you're praying about, with the heartbeat of, Lord, reveal yourself, show yourself, be glorified in this situation. So
even if it's my death,
and that mentality doesn't cease if it's culturally good or culturally bad. Like we look at the healing was the good part, but the death is the bad part. The Lord can glorify himself and does glorify himself in both of those scenarios.
Yeah, I mean,
so
without the death of Christ, we're all going to hell. So
absolutely. The biggest glorification moment. Yeah.
So death for the glory of God should definitely be part of our theology.
Absolutely. 100%. I don't have a cool witty one. Speaking of my favorite miracle.
Speaking of cool witty ones.
Cool witty ones. Steven's over there.
What did we call him last time?
Vanilla Man.
Vanilla Man.
That's right.
And with the hot Cheeto dust.
Yeah, he's got a little pouch of Cheeto dust.
Dude,
like human verse machine over here and
Vanilla Man. I picture like completely albino Steven with a red pouch on his hips.
I can get behind that, but I also want him to have a really thin, narrow red, like red Cheeto dust mask.
Gosh,
you know,
so
like
cool
over his eyes.
Yeah, like bleach blonde hair coming out as well.
Hey, I wish we knew an artist who could like draw this out.
I know, right?
It's different. I can't do that.
You should do the pixelate like we talked about a few weeks ago.
Who out there is willing to draw that for us?
I bet we got
the human verse machine and Vanilla Man.
Vanilla Man.
Everybody just send us your drawings. We don't care how good or bad they are.
Yeah.
Just post it and then tag us.
Tag Simpler, add Simpler Pod. So you got.
We need to see the little packet of Cheeto dust. I want to see him attacking
got
somebody
a
with Cheeto
little
dust.
fanny pack of Cheeto dust. Got the
That's
red.
what I'm talking about.
Yes,
Fanny pack.
So, I like how I'm the human verse man, but I'm just nondescript.
Human verse machine.
Can Vanilla Man be wearing like really short pink shorts? And that's
absolutely.
Heck yeah.
With a fanny pack.
Yeah.
But they have to probably be along with the Cheeto dust color. Like, 'cause
Okay, it can be red.
he'll wipe his fingers on them.
Got it.
No, that's what it should be, is white shorts with you see the fingerprints where he's wiped it off.
Albino,
I don't know why I chose white shorts.
Completely white Steve. Just and maybe a little Cheeto dust around the mouth.
Exactly. Yeah. Fingers always have Cheeto dust on his mouth. He runs his hands through his hair. There's a streak of dust.
Can we make the human verse machine look like Salty?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm down, man. Salty shaped my theology early on, you know?
Oh my gosh.
Salty, the singing songbook. Baby.
Yeah. So if none of you guys know those references, know the Salty reference, we'll get that posted somewhere so everybody can see him.
You can probably pull it up on Spotify.
Yeah. Gosh, Salty. I forgot about that. He's like, what's crazy is there's like the cool era of Salty, which I felt like this isn't weird. And then like they changed the costume just slightly where he's terrifying.
Creepy.
Yes. I don't know if it's the actor or the costume.
If I remember correctly, in the Salty tape, like the first Salty tape, it's almost kind of like if I'm remembering correctly, it's kind of like an E.T. moment where remember that Elliot goes out and finds E.T. in the garage kind of thing.
Yeah.
A kid hears a noise and he goes out in his garage and there's Salty, the singing songbook. And he's like, hey, you know, and like, if I remember correctly, like
that'd be so funny.
This kind of narration at the front, you know, or something.
They're like,
really
what's
creepy.
Salty's backstory? Maybe I just found him, you know?
I had Salty on tape and I had the Music Machine on vinyl, and the Music Machine was this Christian machine, and you would throw anything in and a song would come out.
Okay, that's it. Forget Salty. That's it. The human verse machine is that. Whatever that. I don't know that, but that's it.
Oh, it's awesome.
I'll show you a picture of the guy because you'll love it.
Oh my gosh.
So you'll want to see all these things. So follow us on social media at SimplerPod to see us post Salty, Human Verse Machine.
No, Salty's out.
Oh, Salty's out.
I didn't know about
the
Music Machine.
The Music Machine.
That must have been in the 70s because I was not around.
Yeah. At SimplerPod, tagged at the Garden Audio and all your drawings of Vanilla Man. We're going to want to see those. Tag at SimplerPod. Give us, wherever you are listening or watching this, give it a like, give us subscribe. It helps the algorithm a lot, and that's not for the means of us proclaiming ourselves, but it's by the means of growing this community. We've what's great is over the past 2 years, there's the picture of it. Got to see it. What I was going to say is over the past 2 years, we've seen that growth in views through YouTube and stuff like that. So that's you guys interacting with the videos and interacting with what's going on. That's the music.
That's
the music
the cover
machine.
art. Yeah,
I don't know how to feel about it.
That's the cover art for the Music
It's
Machine.
like too plain.
Why is it? Why is it pointing down like that? Was it to point at the children? The what do they call that phone thing?
Oh,
what do they call the
That's where
horn
the
looking
song
thing?
comes out.
I know, but it's pointed down. Most of those are pointed
Music
like up.
Machine.
Yeah, but it's like pointing like at the
Music
face of that
machine.
kid. It's just
I do remember that. I didn't remember it till
The
you
best
just did that.
contraption that you've ever seen.
Human verse machine.
I have no idea. Yeah, so you're
I
gonna
love
want
these ideas now.
you're gonna want to see all that. We love you guys. We're thankful for you guys.
I think we make one of those megaphone things like where the fanny pack is, and every once in a while it just goes.
Yeah, I know, right? Just taking off his hip. As always, keep Christ as core. Hey, what can be simpler than that, my friends? We'll catch you guys next week. Bye.
Music Machine.